What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Fourth and Fantasy Podcast. My name's Meek. I'm your host. I got my co-host across the table, Wu.
What's going on?
What's going on today, Wu?
Nothing much, man. It's just another great day to talk about fantasy.
Another great day. Today I'm really excited to get into our topic for today. Like, this is the main reason why, we started this Dynasty podcast. We're talking rookie QBs today.
Let's go.
Yeah. So, over the next couple of weeks, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to profile for you, every major class or position for the incoming rookies. So today's episode is going to be rookie previews for quarterbacks. Then we're going to give you running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. And then, I think by that time, it's almost like it's draft time. NFL draft time.
It's coming up
crazy.
quick.
Yeah. And we love it. You know what I mean? Because this is what we love to do. And, you guys have been showing us a lot of love. Speaking of love, we're at 300 plus plays right now across Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube.
Crazy.
That's awesome to see. Keep giving us, keep showing us the love. If you're make sure you give us a follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts and give us a rating. You know what I mean? Make sure you're following us on our socials: Twitter at Fourth and Fantasy Pod, Instagram and TikTok at Fourth and Fantasy. YouTube, you can just search us for Fourth and Fantasy, and you can get a video format like you are seeing today, ladies and gentlemen. So another thing I want to talk about, Wu, at the top of the show before we get into our quarterbacks is we joined another dynasty league.
Of course we did.
Of course we did. We can't help ourselves. But what the interesting one about this one is we actually were reached out by Dynasty Trading Room is a page on Instagram. Go ahead and give them a follow. It's just at Dynasty Trading Room. No spaces. But they reached out to us wondering if we wanted to partake in a dynasty league, almost like a dynasty tournament. And we were like, absolutely. We're definitely just super blessed to be included in something like this.
That was really cool to hear from.
Yeah, appreciate you, Dynasty Trading Room, very much. So basically, I'm gonna lay it out for you, like kind of what this league is. So what it is? It's 4 leagues, 4 12-team leagues, and then the winners of each of those leagues will face off in kind of a tournament against each other. But the grand prize, Wu, is you become a lead dynasty analyst for the Fantasy Trading Room and their channel. So, we're gonna try our best. We're gonna do the best we can. Wu and I are co-managing this team together. So a little bit different, the Dynasty League we talked about before.
You're looking at Jerry Reinsdorf and Jerry Krause, right?
Right, absolutely. But the one we did before, we're each have our own team in that league. This one we're doing together. So that's going to be interesting to see how we can do. But the format: 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 3 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 3 flex, and a super flex. So obviously, when we know more about startup draft and when the season starts and stuff like that, we'll definitely keep you updated on how we do.
Yeah, this is cool. Got a lot of roster spots to fill, a lot of starters. But yeah, it'll be interesting to have 2 sets of opinions setting up a team,
right?
And I hope that sets us up for more success.
Absolutely. So we got Dynasty on the mind, Wu. You know what I mean? So my quick question today is going to be about Dynasty. So
I would hope it is.
My quick question for you, Wu, today is Dynasty sleeper. What player or players do you see as a sleeper in Dynasty startup rankings right now?
All right, so I got 2 for you. My first one's going to be wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, Brandon Ayuk. He's currently in startup drafts, being drafted as a wide receiver 33 around pick 81. And I just think people are forgetting what he did in 23. He is all by himself now. Debo's going to be gone. Really, the only other guy there is Ricky Pearsall. George Kittle's on the tail end of his career. And any offense with Kyle Shanahan involved, I want pieces of it. They just gave Brandon Ayuk a huge contract extension.
Massive.
Yes, he gets hurt this past season, messed up his ACL and MCL, so it's going to be a slow start to the next season. I don't even know when he's going to be back in the next season. He might miss those first few games, but I expect him to ramp it up, and towards the second half of next year, I am all in on Brandon Ayuk. He's still only 26 years old. They used a first-round pick on him when he was drafted in 2020, and I just think he is absolutely a guy who can be in an offense by himself, and he already has that connection with Purdy. We'll see what San Francisco does, with the Purdy decision, if they give him money or if they look elsewhere. Either way, I'm all in on Ayuk. I think he is being drafted way too low out of all these receivers.
And honestly, ladies and gentlemen, let that be an example, especially, we're talking dynasty. So dynasty, like, you're going to have this player for the foreseeable future until you decide to trade him or drop him. So, what is, missing the first 6 weeks of a year, you know what I mean, when you have a player the caliber of Brandon Ayuk,
Exactly.
so that it could be a potential steal.
Yep. And then my next one is going to be Bo Nix.
Dude, I had this one ready to fire in, but I didn't put it in. I'm so glad you put him in.
Yeah, he's definitely a name I'm keeping in mind for all my drafts, but Dynasty specifically because in startup drafts, he's being drafted as a QB 11, pick 27. So a lot of Dynasty leagues, at least all the ones that I'm in, are super flex, so you can start 2 quarterbacks, which is very important. And then in those startup drafts, you see quarterbacks going very early and often. So to see Bo Nix all the way down, outside of the top 10 quarterbacks being drafted, I think is asinine. He has an insane rookie year. He's only going to get better. He's a dual threat guy, which I was unaware of when he was coming into the league. So now that I know he's got legs with his game, I want it. Sean Payton offenses are always highly successful. And they're also very complicated to see him have success in year one. Like, I can only imagine what the future holds. I think they're going to keep adding weapons to that offense. I hope they add to a running game.
They need to add weapons to that offense.
Yep. I hope they add to their running games to give them another dimension of that. They need another receiver. I'm hoping Marvin Mims takes another step, selfishly, because I have him in the Dynasty League. But yeah, no, I'm all in on Nix. I think there's a couple names ahead of him that I was very confused by. Like Drake May should not be going ahead of Bo Nix. I'm sorry, but I kind of like Bo Nix ahead of Justin Herbert.
No, I respect it.
There's a few names that are going around here that I would easily take Bo Nix ahead of because of his dual threat ability.
Yeah, no, I like that pick a lot. My two for you, I'm going to give you. My first one is Caleb Williams. I think after the season that you saw from Caleb Williams, everyone kind of left him, dead and gone, and a rookie quarterback is never outstanding.
Everyone has their brain washed because of what Mahomes did in his rookie year.
Or Daniels this year. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's just under the assumption that, like, if you're that high up there, you're supposed to just have a dynamite season, and that's not the case.
Peyton Manning's rookie year.
Absolutely.
Look it up.
Yeah, it's so bad. So he's going right now as the QB 8, pick 21 in dynasty startup drafts, and that's a gross undervalue for him, and I think that if you can get him around there or even later, like you smash that, because the other thing that you have to think about, on top of him being a rookie, he's going to get better in year 2, but then they also hired Ben Johnson as their head coach, and you saw what he did with Jared Goff, of all people, down in Detroit. Like, what can he do with Caleb Williams? You know what I mean? So I have high hopes for Caleb Williams, and this is for people who might be afraid in dynasty startups to take him. Don't be afraid.
No,
you smash it.
And he's on a team that we were just talking about, Knicks, how they need to add to those weapons. He has weapons already. They just need an offensive line so he can actually have some time.
Absolutely. And then my second one for you is running back out of Seattle, Mr. Kenneth Walker. I don't know if you know this, Wu, but Kenneth Walker is going as the running back 16.
That's crazy.
And I think that is so insane. And I can frame it from someone who has the negative view of Kenneth Walker. He never stays healthy. He never really gives you kind of like dynamite weeks. But like, Kenneth Walker is only 24 years old. We were just kind of talking about this before. Like, he's only 24 years old. He's in the last year of his deal this year. And
we've seen guys cook in their contract years.
Absolutely. Like, in the contract year, that's kind of what you want in a player. Like, aside from dynasty, and I'll get back to it, but like, even in redraft, like, I might be a buyer on Kenneth Walker in redraft this year on top of it. And it's not like, this past year he only played 11 games, but the 2 years before, his rookie season and his sophomore season, he played 15 games. You know what I mean? He had 1,000 yards in his rookie season. He had 905 in his second year. And I just think he was just derailed by injuries, and you can't expect someone to always be injured. You know what I mean? Yep. So I'm buying Kenneth Walker at running back 16. And I'll do that with a smile on my face.
Yeah, I like that pick. We've seen crazy flashes out of him. It's just the injury piece. Can he stay on the field?
Yeah. All right. It is time, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting into it. today we're talking rookie QBs.
Let's go.
So just a couple of things. I'm gonna frame it for you all how we're gonna kind of roll through this and talk about it. So we're only gonna talk about 7 rookie QBs. I know there's more. But I think for dynasty football and rookie drafts, I think talking about these 7 quarterbacks are probably going to be the most important ones. Looking at some mock drafts, we've been seeing mostly 2 quarterbacks drafted in the first round of mock drafts. Looking at like Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft on NFL.com or CBS Sports. But my question for you was, do we see 3 quarterbacks drafted?
I really hope not, because I've said on the show before, I really want Dart in that second round for the Jets, as a selfish Jets fan, but I'm starting to see his name creep up even more. Yeah. I also wouldn't be surprised if somebody takes a shot on Milroe.
Yeah. So like if I were to set the line, at over under 2.5 QBs being drafted in the first round, you on the over side or you on the under side?
I think if I'm betting on it, I think I'm leaning towards the under. But if it goes over, I wouldn't be shocked. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning the over. I think what you're going to see when this scouting combine happens, there are going to be people who fall in love with a couple of these other quarterbacks. Could be Dart, could be Milroe, and it might be enough to push them into the first round. Or you see a team trade back into the first round and draft one of these QBs in the late first. That's just my theory. I'm take it with a grain of salt, but that's just kind of the feeling that I got with it.
Yeah, and the free agent class for quarterbacks isn't insane.
Correct.
So I could see teams who really want to make.
I was going to say, and that's the other piece of it too, right? Is like, I mean, outside of last episode we just talked about free agent quarterbacks, but like outside of Darnold and like Russell Wilson, there isn't really much to go for. You know what I mean? So I could see a team just who's a QB needy team. Maybe they do take like their blue chip player at the beginning of the first round, and then they trade back into the first round, late, and they get their quarterback.
Yep.
So when we talk about these quarterbacks today, we had a process, when we did it. So we broke it down into 5 areas for each prospect. So the first one we'll talk about is the pre-film stuff. So we're going to talk about their stats, talk about some accolades that they had during their time in college. The next one we're going to talk about is post-film stuff. So that's our impressions and thoughts about the players after watching film, and then we'll move into some comps. Who this player reminds us of. And next, then we'll get into best fits. And this is kind of where do we see this player finding the most success? And I emphasize the most success because not all fits are plausible. It's just what we think would be the best fit for this player and their skill set that we're seeing. And then lastly, we'll just kind of wrap it up and give you kind of our overall thoughts and impressions of this player. And what do we think they can do in the NFL? Maybe, and then at the end, maybe we'll share it on our socials, but we'll share with you where they fit in our personal rookie rankings. So Wu so we didn't talk about it much, right? So Wu and we just did our film on our own, did our notes on our own, because obviously when we do the show we do like a shared doc, but this one we did our own separate thoughts, which is good because I don't want us to have like the same thoughts, because if you have a different feeling about a player than I do, I want to hear that, and maybe like I'm high on a player and you kind of bring me back down to earth and vice versa.
Yeah, that's the beauty of fantasy football. There's no right or wrong answer. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion and what you're seeing. And then, you try and call your shot. So yeah, we definitely want to keep this separate. We had our little side conversations, little things that we wanted to talk about for each of these guys. But for the most part, it was all just, doing it on our own, and come showtime, we'll see what we got.
Absolutely. So all right, without further ado, we're gonna kick it off with Cam Ward of the University of Miami. Cam Ward was the 2024 Davey O'Brien winner, which is the nation's top quarterback. He was also the Manning Award winner, and he was also the 2024 ACC Player of the Year, which is the first time that a Miami player has ever won that award.
Which is crazy.
It is. Like, you think about like all of like the classic, the U teams and stuff like that, and nobody was a ACC Player of the Year, which is kind of
those are
insane.
just all NFL players.
Yeah,
and mostly Hall of Famers.
And he was also a consensus All-American. So Cam Ward's no slouch. He's been to a couple of places. Started off at Incarnate Word, which I think was a D1 AA school down in Texas. Played there for a couple of years. Interesting stat I recently heard about Cam Ward is, well, in high school he only averaged 12 passing attempts per game.
Really?
12. And he was on a team that ran a wing T offense. So those of you who aren't familiar with like high school football, a wing T offense is you're 90% running the football. So like imagine like Georgia Tech or like Navy, like that's kind of the offense he was running.
Wow.
So he's at Incarnate Word for 2 years. He transfers over to Washington State. And then I think last year, he was thinking about going into the draft, and, draft analysts were, essentially saying that, you need to go back to college and kind of prove it more. So, he transfers to Miami, and
he does so.
He does so, exactly. So, when I looked at kind of like the pre-film for him, obviously he had a good height, like an average weight. He had a 67% completion percentage, which is good. I liked his yards per average. It was 9.5 yards per average. He had an 8.6% touchdown percentage, which is the second best in the class, and that's what you love to see.
And I think like NFL average is around like 4 and change, maybe low 5s, but even that might be a lot.
Right. So 8.6 is nutty. He took care of the football. He only had 7 interceptions, and he on the stat sheet it looked like it all worked. He was a 88.7 QBR, which is second best in the class, and you love to see. But what do you think pre-film for Cam Ward?
Yeah, so Cam Ward was definitely one of the quarterbacks I saw the most, just because his games were so hyped up, because Miami was ranked in the top 5, to start off the year, and he was in that Heisman conversation. So he was someone I was watching live earlier in the college football season. The things that I saw, I think he ran pretty well. He doesn't take a lot of sacks. He's got good pocket presence, great arm. That's a selling point, is his arm.
Oh yeah.
A thing I like to look at, for all sports, when I'm looking at these college guys, is, what conference are they playing in? What does their competition look like? And the ACC compared to the rest of the Power Four is weak, on the weaker side.
Sure.
You're not playing, SEC obviously is crazy. Even the Big 12, I like their conference more than the ACC. So that is something I'm paying attention to. I don't think that should be, your main reason as to why you don't like a guy, but I just like to highlight that. I think he's pretty much really had the major hype to be the number 1 pick and number 1 QB off the board, since the season was going on. And like you touched on, I do like his size. He's not too big, but he's not too small. He's kind of right in that sweet spot for me.
Yeah. So I'll let you go first with like your post film stuff. What did you see when you looked at the film for Cam Ward?
Yeah. So I didn't watch one specific game. I think there was one, I forget what game it was, that I saw the most out of. But to me, everything just looks so effortless for him. Like, he looks so, like, nonchalant's not the right word, but, like, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, he just looks so calm. Huge arm. One thing that really stuck out to me was his ball location. Like, his receivers were always catching the ball in stride. They never had to turn around, and that just creates yards after the catch. So it made it an explosive offense. Also very accurate, throwing the ball away from defenders, making sure his receivers don't get lit up. So that's something you like to see. He can really, like I said earlier, he has great pocket presence, can move around, extend plays, extend drives. His escapability was something that stood out to me as well. I think he sees the field really well, and I think that is, a result of, he has a lot of game experience. Like, he's played a lot of college games. Reminds me of like Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, where they played at different schools and they played 4 or 5 years in college. He stayed. We were talking about how he was looking at the draft last year, and he comes back for another year. And just adding that experience is something that's important. It's all about reps, and the more you see the field, I think the better you are.
Yeah.
On his dropbacks, they're kind of short and quick, which I like. He's got a good base with his feet. His feet aren't, he doesn't have twinkle toes back there. His head's always moving, scanning the field, going through his reads. His timing on throws is really good. I have footwork down again because I liked it that much. He's throwing guys open. You need that at the NFL level because these defensive backs are going to be just as fast, if not faster, than your receivers. Miami had a lot of RPOs, and that's something that you're seeing a lot in the NFL. So it's good that he has that understanding and he's able to function in an offense like that. And then he had he had a bunch of big games, but the biggest ones I had was Duke, USF, and Louisville. I think in all 3 of those games, he was over 350 yards passing with 3 to 5 touchdowns in those games.
Yep.
So I really liked what I saw at Ward.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely. I definitely see the hype behind Cam Ward. Obviously we talk about, this rookie class not being as deep as last year, the 2023 class. But I think Ward is the best quarterback in this class, because he he's probably the most special talent out of all of these QBs that we're going to talk about. Some notes that I had for him was, I noticed he had a real quick release, and he has the good thing about him, and it's almost like, I think you're going to start seeing this a lot more, with incoming, rookie quarterbacks, is that they have these like unorthodox arm angles where they can throw the ball from different angles, to get a ball around a defender.
Yep.
And I think that's huge in the NFL because, if you have just the normal over the top throwing motion, a lot of times your balls get batted down.
Yes.
And with him being able to change his arm angle, I think is going to work really well with him. I did notice he had a lot of off platform throws, and he was someone who was not afraid to chuck the ball deep. You know what I mean? Like he will let it rip and go down the field. He had decent pocket presence, definitely had a good fastball. And then in terms of his rushing ability, he takes his opportunity to run the ball. He's not someone who's going to be like a dual threat quarterback or anything. But if he has an opportunity and you leave him, with green grass in front of him, he's gonna take that.
Agreed.
And then about his throwing motion. Also, I put he doesn't need a lot of wind up and to put heat on the ball. You know what I mean? It's like that quick flick.
Yep.
Which is awesome. Awesome to see. So when we get into comps, the comp that I had for him was almost like a Aaron Rodgers arm angle meets Geno Smith.
I like that.
I see a lot of Geno Smith. So I mean, again, like, is it gonna work in the NFL? Yes, but I don't know how long it works. Obviously, Geno Smith isn't someone who like lights the world on fire.
Right.
But I think Cam Ward is someone who is special enough to elevate the pieces around him, because that's kind of what it takes for a quarterback, and
especially when you're first one off the board.
Absolutely. When you're a rookie quarterback, or just a quarterback in general, the question has to be asked: can you elevate the pieces that are around you to be special and keep you in games? We talk about someone like Jaden Daniels. Obviously, like Terry McLaurin was a great talent, but like he elevated Terry McLaurin. He brought Zach Ertz to relevancy. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be a special player in order to be worth that first round draft grade. So obviously, talking about first round draft grades, like I don't see any of these quarterbacks in this draft class as a first round, talent. I think you're going to get a lot of QB needy teams that are going to have to take him.
Right.
But I don't know where he goes. But I'm jumping the gun, Woo. But what are some comps that you have for him?
So the comps that I saw, I have the arm talent of Caleb Williams. Changing that arm, angle. That rocket throw with not a lot of foot movement behind it, along with the composure of Stroud. I think Stroud always looks very calm back there, no matter if he's facing a blitz or it's a 3-man rush. He always looks the same. He's got that same game face on, and very focused. So that's kind of what I see out of Ward. You're talking about his footwork and his pocket presence, and I think both of those guys show that they can move around back there, especially with really bad offensive lines, because they both have some terrible ones.
Yeah.
And I think Cam Ward kind of fits that bill.
Yeah. So some best fits. I have one fit that I think would actually be really good for someone like Cam Ward, and it's the Giants. I think you pair him, Neighbors and Ward together could just be a dangerous combo. And, like I've been saying before, I think he's special enough to lift the pieces around him, and he could, sustain someone like Malik Neighbors to, have a wide receiver, not one overall, but a wide receiver one season from, like 12 to 1.
Mm-hmm. So for I have two fits. First off, I want to say he's going to go 1 overall.
You think so?
I don't know. I don't know if I buy the Abdul Carter kind of stuff. I think Tennessee is so desperate.
I kind of buy it though. I think what you're going to see is, obviously looking around at like multiple sources, but from things that I'm reading, it looks like Tennessee is like they like Ward, but they're in love with like Carter. So I could see them passing up on Carter, and then that leaves with the Cleveland Browns next, and I could totally see them taking him and just ruining him.
Yeah, no, I think he's going to go number 1 overall. It was a story for so long, and now all of a sudden it's kind of changing up. And to me, like when things kind of change late, I don't know. I just always think those first initial reactions are always the more real ones. So I think he's going to go 1 overall. But my two fits are, I also have the Giants. They have more weapons than Tennessee. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't have to even though I still think he can elevate those weaker pieces, he wouldn't have to do it as much with the Giants.
Yeah.
I still like Dave Wall. I think he's a good coach. Obviously, you have Malik Neighbors. They have a running game with Tyrone Tracy. And I think the offensive line had a bad year. I don't think they're as bad as advertised right now. And then my other second fit is the New York Jets.
Oh,
I don't think he falls here at all.
not a chance.
There are talks now that they might trade up to that one spot.
I sent that to you.
I hope they don't do that because I think that's an insane overpay. But, it's a great fit weapons-wise. They have offensive talent all over the field, and it's just that one guy that stands behind the center that they have to figure out. He wouldn't have to go crazy elevating those guys. They will need to improve the offensive line to give him a chance. And it's a new coaching regime, so they want to have, their own guy that, the guy that they can call their own. So I think the Jets is another good spot for him.
I know it's early, and I know we're in the end of February, but let's play hypothetical. If the Jets were able to land Cam Ward, the Jets finish where, Will?
I'll give you a floor and a ceiling.
All right, I like that.
Ceiling, I'll go. I think the defense gets a lot better than it was last year. I think ceiling, I would go. I'll go 9-8 for ceiling.
Okay.
And
respectable.
Floor, I'll give you like 4-13 or whatever the math is.
All right. Realistic. I thought for some reason you were going to say they were 11 wins.
That's one thing I'll say. As a Jets fan, it sucks, but I will always keep it real. Like, I'm not going to go out here saying, like our man BK, thinking they're going to win 12 games last year. Come on, man. You're smarter than that, BK.
So just my overall thoughts for Cam Ward. He's definitely the best quarterback in this class. He's got excellent ball placement, can make every throw. He's got great pocket presence. My only couple of concerns is, he throws a lot off platform, and
But I think those off platform throws, though, or at least for what I was seeing, is that like nonchalance to him. Like I don't know if that's necessarily like him not being what's the word I'm looking for? Like fundamentally sound. I think he just knows he can just kind of just zip it whenever he wants. Yeah. But I'm sure at the NFL level they're going to want to change
I was going to say, so like with that being off platform, like, could that lead to a lot of interceptions? You know what I mean? Like rookie quarterbacks are already prone to throwing to a lot of interceptions.
Right.
And if he, tries to be too special by, on the run off platform, it could lead to, some interceptions. I also put, he's mobile enough to be dangerous, but he's also an older prospect. You know what I mean? So, those are just kind of my overall thoughts for Ward.
Yeah, I like that. So I'm assuming we both have him ranked at 1.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. He's my number 1 definitely.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're gonna move it into our QB. The next QB, not necessarily QB2, but the next QB is Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado, Mr. Deion Sanders' son. Prime time. Some things before. We talked about his film. Shedeur was the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award, so that's given out to the best senior quarterback. So different to what Cam Ward was. He was the nation's best quarterback. Shedeur was the best senior quarterback. I don't know. Did you ever see the clip between him and Shedeur when they're like working out?
Oh, I love those. There was a new one the other day.
Yeah, the one that was talking about him winning the Johnny Unitas Award.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it, ladies and gentlemen, try to search that on socials. But essentially, Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward have been working out this whole like pre-draft process, and I love it actually.
I think
to challenge each other.
Sports. That's
absolutely.
Sports.
But they get into an argument, as they're working out, and Cam Ward essentially says like, you won an award for throwing checkdowns and bubble screens. If I did that, my completion percentage would be 90%.
Yeah.
So I thought that was hilarious. But
there was another one earlier in the year where they were working out, and like Shedeur wanted to take a break. He's like, you guys want to get some water and check your phone? Like, I'm still ready to go.
Yes, I think it was in that same workout.
Probably was.
But anyways, so Shedeur Sanders is such an accurate passer. He's the most accurate passer in the class. I think we have him down. I just gotta look 1 second. Shedeur had 74%. So he's the most accurate passer in the class. He was I lost my place. He was the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. And what I looked at, when we looked at his stats, threw the ball a lot, had the most tied for the most, pass attempts in the class. He had a good touchdown rate, 7.8, not as good as Ward's 8.6. But he had 10 interceptions in college, which I thought was a little concerning.
Yeah.
I don't know how that translates into the NFL, but we'll have to see. You definitely saw there were times with that Colorado offense where a lot was asked of Shedeur. So and the other thing too is he's not a dual threat guy. I think he had negative 60 rushing yards on the year or something like that.
It was negative 50, but
negative 50.
I think he can be a dual threat guy. I don't like looking at college rushing numbers because when you take a sack, that's minus rushing yards.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's necessarily on him because that Colorado offensive line was Swiss cheese.
Oh my God.
So I don't know if I necessarily blame that on them. He had 100 rushing attempts.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying he's like a bona fide dual threat guy, but I think he's got better legs than Ward.
Yeah. And when I get into the post film, so that was these were all kind of like my pre-film notes.
Okay.
And then when we get into the post and you started to see him maneuver. But anyways, I'll get into that. Anything pre-film, Wu, that you had for Shedeur?
He definitely had the most media attention out of any quarterback. Understandably, you're Deion Sanders' son. I thought he was efficient with his passes. He touched on the highest completion percentage in the class. A little careless with the ball, 10 interceptions. Some of those interceptions can be tip balls, and maybe it's not actually his fault. Still a number that kind of jumps off the page a little bit. He was paired with a great weapon on the outside. Even his other receivers, I don't remember their names, but Travis Hunter, obviously a stud, won the Heisman,
yeah.
So that's always helpful. And then I also had written down really bad O-line, so he kind of had to make things work on the fly.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, when I watched the. After I watched the film, my notes that I had is this dude was tough as nails. Like you said, that Colorado offensive line was Swiss cheese, yep. And he was getting blown up in some of these plays that I'm watching, just absolutely getting destroyed. But he probably has the greatest pocket presence out of anyone in this draft class.
Yes.
When you watch him maneuver in a pocket, eyes are always downfield, but he's always moving.
Mm-hmm.
Either it's laterally and then pushing up into the pocket, you know what I mean, so that he has a clear view.
And it's those small intentional movements. It's not those big ones kind of messing everything up, messing up the timing. It's I know I need to move just a little bit to this side or this side or up and back, and it keeps him in a good spot to throw.
I was gonna say he's mobile, and he's not a mobile quarterback, but he's he's mobile in the pocket where he is constantly moving and extending
he's
plays.
Just very intentional with it.
Right. And so, he extended a lot of plays, in the film that I saw, and that led to a lot of, deep passes downfield or sometimes even touchdowns. But traditionally we noticed that, if that is a quarterback superpower, if extending plays, sometimes it doesn't translate well into the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Case in point, I did bring up Caleb Williams, with our quick question, but that was what Caleb Williams was known for as he was, coming out of USC, was that he's an extender. He, will extend the play, and you did notice that a lot when he was with Chicago, and it was almost to a fault where he was extending the play, taking sacks, or just making bad errant throws. So I am a little concerned about that. The other thing I put, on top of him, extending plays was sometimes he was caught, Shedeur was caught holding the ball too long, yep. And took some bad sacks. But he had his release looked very slow compared to what other quarterbacks that I saw. It was definitely mechanical, not mechanical, but polished, I guess. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't it didn't have a zip to it. You know what I mean? He's good, not elite at a deep ball. But the thing that I think the thing I love, other than him being mobile in the pocket, I love the most is he takes the easy throws.
Yes.
His ball, he always takes those short area yard, just a quick out or, a quick slant over the middle. He progresses through his reads really well. But then, always, takes he's not going to hold the ball too long and then extend a play like Cam Ward does. He's just going to take what's out in front of him, and just keep moving the ball down the field. And then the last couple of things I had, ball placement suffered when he was asked to make quick throws, where it was a quick 1-2 drop and then fire it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes his ball placement suffered. He doesn't have a wow factor. He's not a special talent like Cam Ward where he's gonna have these crazy arm angles and zip the ball down the field. But he's going to be steady for you. And the last thing I put is he's going to need a strong system to be great.
Yes.
And if he could sit for a year, I think that would be ideal.
Yep. So a lot of the film I watched for him was that Baylor game where it was that insane comeback, and he kind of just puts the team on his back. So, one thing I want to touch on before, with all of these quarterbacks and even with the, the running backs and receivers in the future, when I'm watching games, I want to watch games that they played at their best because that means I know that they are capable of doing that.
Okay.
So, when I'm going through these notes, I'm probably going to have a lot more pros than I do cons. But that's because if you have something that you can do, there's going to be a coach out there that can bring that out of you more often than not. So that's kind of how that was my thought process going into this. Some of my notes for Shador, I kind of like his arm motion because it's not like over exaggerated. Sure, it's not quick as Cam Ward, but it's very intentional. It's not over exaggerated, and it still can get it out relatively quick. I definitely think he has legs, but he's not quick or twitchy. He's not going to run for 700, 800 rushing yards. He might be in that like 4 to 5.
Yeah, I want to say I'm looking up his longest rush was only 17 yards.
Yeah, like he'll pick up what he can get, but I think he definitely has the ability to increase that. I really like his pocket presence. It's apparent. He did take a lot of sacks behind a bad O-line, but there were instances where he created his own. He's holding onto the ball too long. But I don't think that's a skill issue. I think that's fixable with coaching. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to harp on that too much. Like you said, he doesn't blow you away with insane throws and runs. He takes what's open, dumps it down, can extend plays with the legs, pick up yards on collapsed pockets, which he had to do a lot. So that's important to see. I thought he had good timing on short, quick throws. But my thing was like, maybe this is kind of a simple offense. Mm-hmm. Is this something that, when he has to take the next step to a more complicated offense, depending on where he goes in the NFL, is that going to be an issue? I think he has a deep ball in his bag. Like there was a lot of throws in that Baylor game where I was like, wow, that's kind of impressive.
And I'm not saying that he had a terrible deep ball. I think it was good, not great.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Fair.
That was kind of where I landed with it.
And then my other thing, we talked about with Ward, where we think he can elevate a weaker roster. I don't know if Shador can actually do that.
No, I agree with that. Absolutely.
He has solid arm strength, but I don't know if he's a guy where if he goes to a Tennessee, like they're not going to be good.
Yeah. So the comp that I had for Shador was C.J. Stroud light, and he's got great pocket presence. A lot like Stroud. He's not an amazing athlete, but he's going to use his athleticism to extend the plays and get the first downs that he needs. So that's kind of where I landed. I don't know. How about you?
I have him as like a game manager type quarterback. I have a mix of Goff and Purdy. They're not asked to do a ton. They have weapons around them. When they have weapons around them, they perform pretty well. So, we'll see where he lands. But, Goff and Purdy, they take what's open. They're not, throwing these insane balls that you see on Bleacher Report later in the day. Like, they're kind of just taking what they got and they win games.
Yeah. So what do you have for some fits for our boy?
So based on mocks, I have him going. I have a couple. But based on mocks, the Giants, they have Neighbors, Tracy, a good defensive line, but the O-line makes me nervous, but I assume if they're taking a quarterback in the draft, they're going to beef that up, and the bright lights of New York won't affect him at all.
Because he's had it his entire life.
Exactly. So based on mocks, I like the Giants. They have some weapons there already, so he's not going to have to elevate a ton. But if we're talking like true best fit, he's going to be drafted well before then. But one of them I have is the Steelers. He's talented enough. I mean, the roster is talented enough where he's not going to be asked to do too much. He can lean on that good defense, and Tomlin's a fantastic coach. So I think that would be a great spot. And my other one is the Rams. Mm-hmm. Imagine him sitting behind Stafford for a year, and then Sean McVay just like lights up the league with this guy.
Yeah.
Like I think that would be insane. It's a really well scripted offense. And McVay's just a genius. So I don't know. Those are my two.
Yeah. So I have three. The first one I'll get out quick. The Steelers. I agree with you. Just playing within a system and having that roster around him is going to be huge for him. My second one was the Raiders. Him playing in Carroll's system. I put predicated on the run. I think this was before we found out Chip Kelly was the offensive coordinator.
Yep.
But I still think it works in that system, and he won't be asked to, essentially be Superman and do things outside of his comfort zone. But my last one, and this is the one that I would like, tinfoil hat again, I'm putting the tinfoil hat on. Could you imagine Shedeur Sanders goes to San Francisco and they let Brock Purdy go, and he is in that, I think he fits so perfectly in a Kyle Shanahan offense where he's only asked to play within himself. It's a hyper efficient passing game where like it's predicated off the run, and then he has either play action passes or these RPOs. I think would work really well for someone like Shedeur, and I could see him being better than what Brock Purdy is right now in that offense. And, obviously San Fran had a down year, but, the year before they went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I think if you put someone like Shadur in instead of Purdy, it could be dangerous.
They've put a lot of random names in behind that, under center, and it's worked. So
right. So just my overall thoughts for Shadur that I had. He's the most polished quarterback in this class. Makes the easy, correct throws, and he rarely goes for the high risk ones. And then, with all of that, just to kind of keep it level, I don't think he's worthy of a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
Kind of just like Ward is definitely better, but I think, but I think you're going to see Shadur go probably in the first round because they're QB needy teams. But, overall, I think his superpower is his pocket presence and able to extend plays.
Yeah.
And then my question is, like, can that work in the NFL? And then, obviously athletic in the pocket, but not athletic to, I think he's not a dual threat guy. I think it's just athletic enough to, get the first down or get that yard that you need. I don't know if you're running like full read options with him. I don't know. We'll see what he runs in the combine, if he does run in the combine. But I don't know. What do you have overall thoughts for Shadur?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of those points. I think if you're going to take him, in those first 10 picks, if you're a QB needy team, you need to make sure you are giving him people to throw the ball to and beefing up your offense, because I've said it, I mentioned it earlier, I don't think he's somebody who can elevate a weaker offense. He needs pieces around him already. Yep. And a good defense would also help. So it's a weaker class, so he's going to go in that top 10, but he probably shouldn't. He is polished the best out of all these quarterbacks.
Yeah. All right. We're going to get into our next quarterback, Mr. Jalen Milroe from the University of Alabama. Jalen Milroe, where's my accolades for him? I don't think there was much. I know the SEC championship game in 2023, he was the MVP of. Yeah. I don't think he got won a lot of awards. But some of my pre-draft stuff that I had for him, was he definitely has a good weight for the quarterback position. Very low passing volume. Coupled with a 65.8% completion percentage was the lowest in the class. I have here 2,834 passing yards is bad. Yeah. Second best yards per attempt though in the class. Second lowest passing touchdowns in the class, but he had a decent percentage. It seems like he's an efficient passer, but this man makes his money as being a dual threat guy.
Yep.
531 rushing yards, 12 rushing touchdowns is legit. So, anything pre-film that you had on Milroe?
Yeah, so big frame, love that. Can take hits, especially if you're going to be a runner, because he has elite legs, and that will bail him out in the NFL at the next level. I really like his deep ball, but his short to medium is not good. He's inaccurate. I have him listed as an NFL project. Do not let this guy go to a really good coach, because I think he could rip.
Yes.
They lost to a couple bad teams this year, but I'm thinking about the conference. He plays in the SEC. He's playing elite. These
every
guys
week.
NFL talent all across the board. But he goes to Alabama. You probably shouldn't lose to Vanderbilt on the road. That's tough.
Yeah. So, post-film stuff that I saw, I actually liked his throwing motion. I think he had a good throwing motion. He had good eyes down the field. Obviously he's a dual threat guy, so I think he had great, escapability, but his release was snappy.
Yes,
you know what I mean? Like he had a snappy release, when he was making his throws. And just like you were saying before, like he's definitely an NFL project. Like his footwork is choppy. A lot of times when I was watching him, you noticed when he was kind of in shotgun before he took the snap, both feet were pointed forward.
I have that exact thing written down.
He didn't have his, you look at like the great quarterbacks that when they're in shotgun, like they're offset, whether it's your right foot or your left foot back, because you're able to then it saves you time, because if you go from flat foot and then put your foot back instead of already being there set, ready to go, like it saves you so much time, and timing is everything for a quarterback.
Yep.
He's athletic. I think, he has some amazing burst. Like when there were times where like he just saw it and it was gone, and there were like small like holes that he just like was able to burst through, and had like such like amazing speed that nobody was able to kind of close the gap or close the lane on him, and I think that's where like he could be special.
Yes. So similar things to you. Great legs. It's unteachable. It's going to translate in the NFL level. I also have the weird stance pre-snap. It messes with his timing, even if it's just at like 10th of a second or half a second. Yeah. It is everything. Thankfully, though, that's fixable. It's not a skill issue. Anybody can fix that. Some of his throws were shaky, but I think they're fixable. It's all based on timing. He's gonna need that development in the NFL. He cannot be a year one starter. He's got to sit back and watch, and get those reps.
Absolutely.
I think he gets through all of his progressions. He's always looking all across the field, but again, it's the timing issue. I love the quick release. He was better in the intermediate game than I thought, but again, timing. Fix those feet, and a lot of those throws probably connect.
Yeah.
Again, I have his legs. It's just insane how he's got that burst, and that will absolutely help him out at the next level. He can hit deep balls off of play action. He maneuvers the pocket pretty well. He shows different arm angles when he gets under pressure and that pocket starts to collapse. So that's good to see. And he has intentionality behind his throws. Whether he's throwing his receiver away from a defender so he doesn't get popped across the middle, or he's throwing back shoulders, trying to draw pass interference. So I like to see that as well.
Absolutely. The comps that I had for him, I like the two that I have is either Jalen Hurts light or Anthony Richardson plus.
Yep.
I don't think he has the bazooka arm that Anthony Richardson has, but the rushing talent is there, and so I guess it's more so the rushing ability of Anthony Richardson meets the passing ability of Jalen Hurts, and I think that if he goes to the right coach, it could be a dangerous thing.
Yeah, my comp is Anthony Richardson with more games under his belt. That was the biggest thing with Richardson coming out of college, is he didn't play enough. And Milroe definitely has all the experience. He's played in the college football playoffs. He's played in SEC championship games. He's played full seasons. I don't think he's dealt with a ton of injuries. So I think that experience will be able to help him more when it comes to, compared to Anthony Richardson.
Right. So what do you have for some fits for Jalen Milroe?
So I said it earlier, he cannot be a year one starter.
Mm-hmm.
He would just be throwing him to the wolves and his career would be over before it even started. So my two fits are Miami. Are we really sure Tua is the guy?
Wow, I like that one.
Even if he is, how long can he actually show it? Is he able to stay on the field long enough? So just imagine Milroe's legs in 2 to 3 years with McDaniel's creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Watch out.
And
they have a couple weapons there. They got HN. Waddle's still there. So I really like that. In terms of creativity for Milroe and giving him time to develop. And he would be with Tua, another Alabama guy.
Yeah.
And then my other one is San Francisco. We've touched on it with with our other fits. It's a great offense to be a part of, and they've shown that they can put pretty much anyone in there that wasn't exactly sought after and have success.
Yeah, my two fits. I have the Giants. I think he fits very well in a Daboll system. You saw Daboll work with Josh Allen and really coach him up to be the quarterback that he is now. Maybe they go the route of they get a stopgap quarterback like a Jameis Winston or like Sam Darnold, and then in 2 to 3 years then it's all right, we're gonna bring Milroe out.
Yep.
I think he could develop him as a passer, and the rushing ability is just something that you can't teach.
Exactly.
My second one, which is kind of spicy, but I think him going to the New Orleans Saints with Kellen Moore could be a good fit.
Okay.
They have Derek Carr already there. They could hold on to Derek Carr, and I believe we talked about in our free agency, they could cut him this year, save $30 million, but I think they could also cut him again, the year before, and you give Milroe 1 year, Kellen Moore, I could just totally see Kellen Moore, taking someone like Milroe and just recreating what he did in Philly with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
And it's just copy paste, let Carr do whatever Carr is going to do for the year, cut him after, the year after, and then, you have Milroe ready to go.
I like that.
Yeah. So
this is where our first rankings, we have a little dispute here.
Yeah, we do. So overall, he's very interesting. He's not a first round pick. If he goes to the right system and the great coaching, I think he could be dangerous. And I think his landing spot is everything. Obviously talking about rankings, I have Milroe 4, just because I like the guy at 3 just a lot more.
Yeah. So I have Milroe at 3 behind Ward and Sanders. And, I'm thinking fantasy legs, mobile quarterbacks is where, you have that, elite level talent where you're winning weeks because of it. It's not going to, I don't have him ranked 3 because of what he's going to do in his first season. I have him ranked 3 of the potential that he can have.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Next quarterback we have on our list is Jackson Dart from the University of Mississippi Ole Miss Rebels. Jackson Dart was an All-American honorable mention in 2024. He was all SEC first team. I think a lot of times I watched a couple of games of Ole Miss, but a lot of times you look at the box scores and you just see this Ole Miss team put up like 60 points, and it was just like, what is going on here?
And then they lose to Kentucky when I bet on.
Yeah, right.
That's a story for another day.
But 69 completion percentage is nice. You like to see that. 10.8 yards per attempt, which is best in the class. He had 4,279 passing yards, third best in the class. The other note I had in my pre-film, stuff I was taking down notes was, I feel like 29 touchdowns was a little low for 4,300 passing yards. He was mobile though, which surprised me. He had 495 rushing yards, so he's someone who moves really well. You know what I mean? And he only had 3 rushing touchdowns. Thought maybe with 495 rushing yards could get a little bit more, but it is what it is. Well, anything of note pre-film?
Yeah, cannon of an arm, sneaky legs. He took good care of the ball, and he was ahead of an explosive offense. So if you're able to do that in college, that's good to see.
Yeah. So like when I watched Jackson Dart, I thought his ball placement was always on point. He had such a great flick. I think he probably had relaxed, effortless throwing motion. I think I like his throwing motion the most out of anybody in this draft class. He definitely needs some work with his footwork, but like we talked about that with Milroe, that's an easy fix in the NFL if you go to the right person. You know what I mean? Had some designed runs, but was also not afraid to get out of the pocket and run. You didn't see, from the film that I saw, I didn't see much of him like in passing situations taking that and that yardage that was out in front of him. But there were times where he did. I put he's a sneaky athletic guy. There were times where he took off and was running down the sideline and would just accept the contact and would just take it right on. I felt like he did have some shaky throws at times. I know he dealt with a lot of injuries though, so could that be a factor as to why he had some poor throws? Who knows? But he's definitely not as polished as someone like Shadur, but he's got a better arm talent than Shadur.
Yeah, I think his ceiling's really high. So for film, I watched his upset versus Georgia. Again, a situation where I want to see where he's at his best, because if he lands in a good spot, this is something that a good coach will bring out of him, more often than not. So I watched that upset versus Georgia. I think Georgia was 5th in the country at the time. I don't remember where Ole Miss was. Ole Miss, terrible O-line. And then also Georgia's defensive line is disgusting year after year. So that was just, to see him win a game like this, was promising for me. Great timing on a clean pocket, good ball location, leads his receivers, throws him away from defenders. Those are important things you want to see at the next level. Good pocket presence. He steps up and checks downs if he needs to. I really liked his quick game, quick step and that quick release that you had talked about. I love the arm talent with the fast release. Great legs, can scramble and pick up chunk plays, and that's going to help him, in those early years of the NFL. You had said this, he needs to clean up his technique a little bit, but again, all fixable. It's not a skill issue.
Yeah.
I think he also has a lot of good reactive throws. If there's a free rusher that wasn't supposed to happen, he can get it out quick and not make poor decisions with that. And this is also something, this next point, this is not something that I saw when I was watching. I didn't play quarterback. I didn't play football, so this isn't something I picked up. But once I heard somebody say it and I went back and looked at it, it made sense. Ole Miss had a very QB-friendly offense, so Dart's ability to read a defense isn't quite where it should be for a senior quarterback.
Yeah.
So when I went back and watched it again, I was kind of picking up on those little things, and it made sense. Right. So I wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah. I'll let you go first, Wu, for your comp for Dart.
So I think this is kind of I got my bag for this one. Sneaky athleticism that Wentz had in Philly.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tied to Rodgers' quick release.
All right.
I think those are two really good things that he should be able to build off of and possibly have a successful NFL career.
My comp for him is Baker Mayfield. I think he's got an amazing arm talent, just kind of like Baker is. Like there was at one point where I was watching him play, and he took off running down the sideline and just like absolutely said, I'm gonna take you on and run you over. And I was like, dude, this guy plays like Baker all like he's aggressive when he runs the ball. Like he's not gonna take the ball out of bounds. He's gonna want to run you over. And I love that in a quarterback.
Yes, that fires you guys up.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and does it lead to potential injuries? Yes. But like you love to see the fire in him like that.
He also has just like a great swag to him, and I think that's great. It has nothing to do with the talent on the field, but when you just when you walk across that line of cocky and confidence, I love that in athletes.
And the other thing I didn't mention, he's only like 21 years old.
Yeah.
Like he's a young. I think he might be the youngest prospect in this class, which is kind of like he can. He sits behind someone for 1 to 2 years, and like you still have him for like a long time. If he goes to the right system. So speaking of best fits, I gotta give it to you. I think the New York Jets is definitely a good fit for him.
I need him bad.
He's got the arm talent to prop up someone like Garrett Wilson, and I think that would be such a great combination. But my question for that is, can he come in and do it on day one?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they will have to have somebody else there first.
Right. And then my second fit, and this one I would love so much, is the Los Angeles Rams. Like if he could go and sit behind Stafford for a year and learn under this McVay system. And then, you just pair Dart with Puka for like years to come. Like I think that could be such a dangerous combo. So go ahead. I'll let you go fits first before we talk about rankings.
Yeah, it's going to be the Jets. I'm sure everybody's sick of me saying it, but it's a new coaching regime. They need a quarterback to call their own. I expect that defense to be revived, which should help him out in his earlier years. But again, I don't think he should not be a week one starter. Go get somebody else. Let him learn a little bit, get his feet wet. But Dart's name is rising up these boards. I think they're going to have to trade up into the early second round if they want him.
Yeah, they
possibly even the first, but I don't think he should be picked in the first round, but if there's that crazy buzz and that's what you need to go get him.
So when I was asking you before we got into the quarterbacks of like, is it over under 2.5? Like I think Dart is the guy who's going to go, because I don't know, for some reason. And so talking about rankings, Dart is my third best quarterback in this draft class, and I think he has such a crazy ceiling.
He does.
That if he were to go to the draft combine and just rip it, like I could see a team being like, "Yep, I want Dart." Like that's gonna be our first round pick kind of thing.
Yeah, I have him at 4 behind Milroe. To be honest, I could probably flip those two, every day of the week and change my mind. I just think Milroe's rushing ability and creates that bigger upside for a fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, like definitely when like if I were to tier it out in my head, like I think Cam Ward and Shedeur are definitely in like a tier one by themselves, and then that second tier is Dart and Milroe, and then
I think it's kind of everybody else. After.
I think there is everyone else, but there is one player that I think could be in a tier by himself before everyone else. And, obviously, we'll get to when we get to him, I'll let you know. But, just overall stuff that I had for Dart is great arm talent. He's got good ball location. Some of his throws were shaky at times, had some poor footwork, but both of those things are fixable in the NFL. And the thing I, talked about a little bit is like I like that he's mobile, and so when I was deciding in my rankings, because I watched Milroe first and I loved Milroe and I loved the potential of him like going to New Orleans and stuff like that, but then I watched Dart and it's like, dude, this guy has such a crazy arm talent, and he's not the runner that Milroe is, but it's enough to where it's a difference maker for me.
Yes.
Like if he were, kind of like the mobile of like someone like Cam Ward, I probably would have had Milroe ahead.
Mm-hmm.
But because he's able to be like a mobile guy, like I think he's the clear cut third. In
totally
this class.
fair. Like I said, I'd probably change my mind every day until the draft comes. So yeah. I'm not mad at that at all.
Yep. All right. So we're going to move into our next quarterback is Quinn Ewers out of Texas. I did not give any quick accolades about Quinn Ewers, but Quinn Ewers is definitely someone that you saw a lot of out of these quarterbacks in this draft class because he was in the college football playoff a lot. I think they made it. Was it the semifinal that they made it to?
Yeah, they lost to Ohio State.
Right, they lost to Ohio State. So Quinn Ewers was your 2024 Walter Camp Player of the Year semifinalist. He was a Maxwell Award semifinalist. A lot of finalists, semifinalists. Never didn't take home a lot of hardware in the accolades department. Some pre-draft stuff I had. He only had a 65.8% completion percentage, and it was so bad, tied for the worst in this class. And he threw the ball a lot, which is concerning to me. 3,472 passing yards, could have been a lot more. And I know he was dealing with injuries. And Arch Manning came in and took over a couple of weeks. 7.8 yards per attempt, which is the second lowest in the class. And the question I kind of put in before I started watching film was he just in a dink and dunk offense? You know what I mean? 31 passing touchdowns is good, but the other thing is turnovers is a problem.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He had 12 interceptions, which was tied for the highest in the class, and he had seven fumbles, which is the worst in the class. So you couple the worst completion percentage on top of a low yards per attempt, and then he's a turnover machine, and then on top of it he's not a mobile guy whatsoever. I was not a fan of Quinn Ewers.
Yeah, I didn't watch a ton of him this year, while the season was going on. So my initial thoughts, I thought, just looking at numbers, he's an okay passer with a 65% completion, not much of a runner. I don't like 12 interceptions at all. Who knows how those came about, but just seeing the number, I don't like it. He did deal with an injury this year. My big positive for him was he is the reason they came back. I mean, they won that game against Arizona State in the playoff. Yeah. He was super clutch in that game, so I do like that. But he was in I put this in quotations, a QB battle all year. How does that happen? If people are so high on this guy in this draft and think he has a crazy ceiling, how are you in a QB battle with a freshman? I get it. It's Arch Manning. He's supposed to be this big prospect, but you should not be in a QB battle if you supposedly have this high ceiling. Absolutely. So I'm kind of iffy on Ewers.
Right. So when I got into his film, I thought he definitely had great footwork on his drops. He definitely had great success in the quick game, and he if I were to give him the highest praise that I could is that in this draft class he's probably the best play action passer in this draft class. Like a lot of times when he's getting those chunk plays down the field, it was all off of play action pass. And I have not looked at the stats of the Texas running backs, but I don't think they were like crazy impressive. Yeah. So like him being able to do that off of play action was I thought was really good. I didn't think he had great accuracy in the intermediate and the deep ball. Can make some of the throws when he's given enough time though. But I a lot of times I noticed that he panicked when he was rushed. Like, if they didn't have a clean pocket for him and he was getting pressure, he panicked and either made like an errant throw or, threw the ball out of bounds, or anything. And, I think what you would love to see in a quarterback in that situation is just take off. And I put like, he will not take off even when he has it. Like if it's open, if it's open out in front of him and he's got the green grass, there were times where he didn't take it. And I'm like screaming watching this film, like, dude, run! Yes. Just like take it down the field. Yep. and get some chunks. I don't know what are you? I know I feel like I'm being negative, but what do you got for?
It's all right. I'm gonna probably keep being negative. I watched this Week 7 game versus Georgia when Texas was number 1. Georgia was number 5. They're playing at home. You got to win this game. It's their first year in the SEC. You got to say, hey, we're here to play. Things I saw: really shaky deep ball. He missed long and short. Underthrow. There were a couple underthrows that turned into catches. That won't happen in the NFL. They will get picked off. And it kind of seemed like he was throwing off his back foot. He wasn't necessarily set. And then you're seeing these short, throws. These balls that get underthrown. Like, if you're throwing off your back foot and all your weight's getting through it. So it's fixable, but it is something I noticed. Limited mobility. He feels the pressure and has to move. But it turned into a throwaway or a sack. It was like you said, never taking off and getting some yards, trying to extend some plays. He's solid in the short and intermediate game. I also watched his game versus Arizona State in the college football playoff. This is why I like to see he was clutch when he needed to be. They won that game because of him, that big 4th down touchdown. But in that game, he only had 2 completions of 20+ yards, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
But he can throw on the run. There was lots of play action in that Texas offense, so that is good to see. Play action is pretty popular in the NFL, especially with certain offenses depending on where he lands. So I did like to see that.
Yeah. The comp I had for him was Andy Dalton. I saw a lot of Andy Dalton, being very kind of stagnant in the pocket, making some good throws when he had clean pockets, you know what I mean, and kind of just working off of play action. But I don't know, what'd you have as a comp for Quinn Ewers?
I'm seeing like Andy Dalton with less of a deep ball unless he can kind of fix those feet.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So I had 2 fits for Quinn Ewers. First one was the Browns. I think he could actually work well in a Kevin Stefanski play action system, as long as he had, good talent around him and he didn't have to play outside of himself. And the second one I had was were the Steelers. I think he could fit well in that system as well.
Yeah, I've got San Francisco. It's a West Coast offense, lots of play action similar to Texas. And if they aren't sold on paying Purdy, all that money, give this guy a chance. They have plenty of weapons, and I'll say it again. Shanahan's always something that he can always make a quarterback better.
Yeah. So when we talk about these rankings, Quinn Ewers is like out of the 7 that we're talking about today. Quinn Ewers is at the bottom of my rankings. Overall, I think he could be okay in the NFL. He's potentially an NFL backup. He does have good footwork and makes great throws in the short game, but I think he needs to work on his accuracy in the intermediate and deep passing. But depending on the landing spot, might not need to.
I agree.
Where do you have Quinn?
I think he's probably in that 3rd round, maybe. If there's a team that wants to kind of take a shot on him, let him sit for, again, not a week 1 starter at all. He's got to sit back there for a couple years. I mean, people keep talking about this crazy upside. I don't know if I really see it. So I guess it's really going to depend on where he lands.
Yeah. All right, we got 2 more for you, ladies and gentlemen. Next one is Kyle McCord out of Syracuse. So pre-film stuff I had for Kyle McCord, led the nation in passing, 4,779 yards, 592 passing attempts, was tied for first in the class with a 66% completion percentage. Is a little bit sketchy, but, that seems like kind of the norm in the NFL. You kind of hope as a college prospect it'd be a little bit higher. 34 passing touchdowns with 5.7 TD percentage is bad. His TD percentage was 2nd lowest in the class. And then I have here 12 interceptions. Yikes.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like he's a rusher, but, what do you think pre-film for Kyle McCord?
Yeah. So first off, what a season. Leads the nation in passing yards. You don't do that by accident.
Yep.
He goes from Ohio State to Syracuse and really steps up his game. I think Ohio State fans were pretty unhappy with what McCord did last year. So to see him go to another team in Syracuse and really improve is what I like to see. Not a fan of the 66 completion percentage, but it's kind of in that, give or take a couple percentage points. Maybe he can fix that. Definitely a pocket passer, not very mobile. And again, played in a weaker ACC conference.
Yeah.
So it is something to pay attention to, but I don't think that should be a massive negative on him.
Right. So when I watched the film for Kyle McCord, it felt like his throwing motion was a little bit awkward. Watching, it wasn't like, polished like Shadur or that zip like Dart. It was a little awkward. Like when I was watching him throw, like it I don't know. Maybe it obviously it worked for him because he threw for almost 5,000 yards. But like he never threw with his back foot. Like his back foot was always like off the ground. Like he wasn't throwing through his back foot and out of his hand. It looked like he lost a little bit of juice and not being able to do that. But then I watched some throws that he had where like he had to make the quick throw. Kept his back foot down on the ground and like put some zip on it. You know what I mean? Which was nice to see. But I don't know. What did you feel? Yeah,
so I watched their win against number 6 Miami. I believe it was at Syracuse.
Yep.
But that's a big win for a program like Syracuse, especially when Miami was balling early in the year. I love this quick drop and the ball is out quick on short throws. Like you just said, he gets that foot planted and lets it rip. I think he has great anticipation, leading his receivers out, allowing them to get yards after the catch. He stands tall in the pocket to deliver even when it collapses. He's got a dude running right at him. He'll stand in there and throw it deep. He's not scared of taking that contact. In that game, he really liked the back shoulder, and I think that's very useful in the NFL. If you can throw that ball, that's important.
Love the back
shoulder. Rodgers made his career off of that. I really liked his ball placement. He puts it away from defenders, or he pulls them in to avoid those big hits. Miami's defense wasn't great, but he was dicing them up in that like 10 to 15 yard range. And that's important. Sure, it's a bad defense, but when you're playing a bad defense, that's what you should do. So that's exactly what he did. I liked seeing that. And then he can throw on the run. He's not like crazy mobile, but if he has to, he will.
Yeah. Yeah. The comp I had for him was Jared Goff light. I think it, he's decent. You know what I mean? I wasn't like I put here in some of my notes, I wasn't wowed. There wasn't really plays that like really wowed me. Like, yeah, he had some, good back shoulder throws with ball placement, but it was never like my God, like that was was a great throw. You know what I mean? And I put here, obviously his favorite throw was the back shoulder throw. But I don't know. What did you think?
My comp is Kirk Cousins. He doesn't move around a ton.
Actually, that's actually really good.
Kind of just stands in the pocket, delivers. His ball placement is his friend. I hope his accuracy can increase. Watching McCord, I'm not saying he should be a first round pick or a year one starter, but I really like him. He won't come into the NFL as a starter if he sits behind the right situation and develops. I think he can be a solid quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, the two best fits I had for him were the Browns, just playing within like that system, and then also the Saints. So I think him paired with Kellen Moore, could be a good combination, if he were to sit for, a couple of years and, learn the NFL system.
Yeah, so I also had the Saints, same reason, so I won't beat a dead horse, but my other one is the Rams again. Like, imagine going to sit behind Stafford for a year or two, depending on how much time he has left.
The Rams have to just make a move on a quarterback in this draft. I think.
It sucks that I keep saying it over and over again, but like you could throw me and you back there, with Sean McVay, and like there would be something good to come out of it. So that's why I keep saying it over and over again. It doesn't get much better than being paired with McVay, and you got a weapon like Puka and a running game with Kyren Williams. It won't cost the Rams a lot in terms of draft capital, and they have to start thinking about their future at some point. Stafford might not even be back this year, so this is kind of banking on them having him for a year or two. But you think, why not? If you can get him you're going to get him late, probably like late third, early fourth, if that, maybe even later. So why not take a shot?
Where does Kyle McCord fit in your rankings for rookie QBs?
I have him at 5. I have him so right after Jackson Dart and ahead of Quinn Ewers.
Okay.
I don't know. I think he looked pretty fundamentally sound. There wasn't a ton that really needs to be fixed. He does need to get that full body through those throws to get that zip on the ball. It's not the craziest arm talent that you've ever seen in the world. I just think he's, very fundamentally sound, and again, in a proper situation where he can get that good development and a smart coach, I think that could elevate him.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move into our last prospect that we're going to talk about in this series. We're going to talk about Will Howard, quarterback out of Ohio State. Was a transfer out of Kansas State, I believe. I think he played at Kansas State the year before. Obviously he was part of the Ohio State team that won the college football playoff. He was also the offensive MVP of that game. Second team All Big Ten. Big 12 when he played at Kansas State. Second team or third team All Big Ten when he played, this past year with Ohio State. When I was looking at his pre-film stuff and his stats, I pointed out he's an older prospect, 23.2 years old. He had a 73% completion percentage, which is great, second best in the class. I liked his yards per attempt, which was 9.5, which third, tied for third in the class. And he had 35 touchdowns and an 8.3% TD percentage, which was great. I think that is like second in the class, third in the class. I think it was third. Okay. But had a high touchdown percentage, which you'd love to see. Obviously, was throwing to dogs like Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka. But
yeah, it makes your life easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you can't fault him.
No, I hate that he had 10 interceptions, but he had a good QBR. He actually had the best QBR in the class, and he ran a decent amount. He was actually more mobile than Cam Ward, and I thought it was very interesting that, couple that, and he had 7 rushing touchdowns. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, bigger frame too.
Yeah. Anything else pre-film, Wu, that you wanted to point out about Will Howard?
Yeah, I mean, he was a part of a really talented offense, but, that shouldn't be a knock on him. You play with who you got. He played really well in their run to the national title. I watched them a decent amount because Ohio State was always on.
Yep.
And they were fun to watch. I guess one of my questions is he good, or would anyone fit into that Ohio State team? I don't think that's really a huge negative you should be putting on him, but it is something to think about at least. I have, pre-film, I had him, maybe a late round flyer for an NFL team, take a shot on the guy, see what happens. I had runner question mark because I had seen some flashes of it, but not enough to where
Consistent,
I was. Yeah, exactly. And then, is his age a problem? He's a 24-year-old rookie. I don't think it's a huge problem because we just seen it with Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels. But again, it is just something to think about when you're a couple years older than the rest of your class.
Yeah. When I watched this film, actually, like, I don't know if I went into it with zero expectations, and I found myself pleasantly surprised after watching his film. He was a way better runner than I expected, and he had quick feet and he had a fast twitch, and I think his best like his superpower is throwing on the run. Like he was on the run and they got him out on like sprint outs and things like that, but he was, very accurate on his passes. Obviously, like we said before, like, he's thrown to like these great wide receiver, talents on the outside. So, is it him being an accurate passer, or is it them being like that elite talent? I'm not sure. But he definitely had some poor footwork under pressure. And like I, said before, he does his best work on the move outside the pocket. I noted that he had pretty good accuracy in the intermediate and deep throws, and I talked about that, an episode before. Like, if you're going to do well in the NFL as a college prospect, you gotta rip it up and be accurate in the intermediates. Yep. And he actually kind of had that, which was good. And he showed some nice touch sometimes on his deep balls.
Yep, I agree. I really liked his ball placement. He lets his playmakers have a chance, to make a play. His footwork is like that's something you can work on, so I'm not gonna fault him too much for it. He's got a really wide base. I noticed on his throws. One thing I do think he needs to work on is his anticipation on throws and give his chance to get yards after the catch.
Yeah,
thankfully he had guys like Jeremiah Smith and Ibuka who can do that by themselves. But you want to like let your receiver have some room to run, especially when it's there, because there was a lot of throws. I think I was watching the Rose Bowl game against Oregon when they ended up blowing them out and kind of running away with it. But he was making good throws and it was to the sideline, but the receiver just had to get their foot in, and then that was it. There was no yards after the catch.
Yeah.
When he could have thrown it maybe a little bit earlier and maybe they get an extra 5 yards, but you never know. Somebody could break a tackle and take it to the house.
Right.
But one thing I did like, he's really good at layering throws, where, receivers coming across the field and you got that linebacker sitting underneath, safety over the top, and he kind of just puts it right in the middle.
Yeah.
He did that a lot. He was also really
good placement.
Yeah, exactly. And he was really good with that, going towards the sideline. You like to see that more in the middle of the field, like I said, so you can get some extra yards out of it. But that was a good positive that I saw. I think he has an issue thinking that he can like fit balls into really tight windows that have no business getting thrown. Yeah. But that's like a decision-making thing. It's not a skill issue. I think that can be fixed, but that was a reoccurring theme that I saw. He can throw on the move. I agree with what you said. He was great in play action. A very pretty deep ball, and I thought he was really good with his eyes. Pre-snap, seeing what he has, reading a defense, getting through his progressions, using his eyes to pull safeties and linebackers away so he can make the throw that he wants.
Yeah. My comp for him I had was Bo Nix. Definitely that older prospect. But like I think he can work in the NFL. I don't know what you have.
So I have Blake Bortles with less of an ability to break tackles in the pocket.
You did not bring up a Blake Bortles comp in this podcast.
I did. And then I also have Joe Flacco's ability to kind of just stand in that pocket and just take a shot from a defender, which is important because you don't want to be scared of contact, especially in football, especially at the professional level. So it's something little, but it's just, to me, that's important.
Yeah. My fits I had for him were, the Rams, like we talked about before, being able to sit and learn in Sean McVay offense. And then the Giants I had, what could be a potential, I think just, overall, I think there's some serious potential with Will Howard. Like you said, Will, he's great in the play action game. I think he's sneaky athletic, does very well in off platform throws. He definitely needs to work on his when he's under pressure, and he has choppy footwork in the pocket, but like those things are all fixed, like we've said, about previous quarterbacks.
Yep.
And I think if put in the right system or right situation, he sits for a year, he could be an interesting starter.
Yeah. So my fit is the Raiders. Give him a chance to reunite with Chip Kelly. He just they just won a national championship as a tandem together. So Vegas uses that 6th pick, take a defensive stud or a big time receiver, whatever the case may be, sign a Darnold or a Russell Wilson, give Howard a chance to develop for a year or two, and if you still like what you see, give him a shot.
Yeah. And then where'd you have Howard in your rankings?
I have him at 7.
7, yeah.
I just think like his ceiling is so much lower than the rest of the guys.
Yeah,
that's pretty much what it comes down to.
I have him at 5. I have him above McCord and Ewers. Okay. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was the rookie preview for for quarterbacks, and we're rolling. We're ready to go, and we're just gonna keep this going. Obviously next episode is going to be running backs. I'm very excited to talk about that.
Yes, a lot of big names.
We've always, in the previous episodes, we've hinted at, how like deep this running back class is. And, I think it's going to be, something serious.
I agree.
But make sure you're following us on our socials, Twitter at 4th and Fantasy Pod, Instagram, TikTok at 4th and Fantasy. Search us on YouTube. Please give us a like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. And that's it. We'll see you on the other side, ladies and gentlemen.
See ya.